What's going on, fellas? Today I've got the a new room mic that I'm going to be using hopefully from now on all of my videos. It's the Avantone, I don't know how you pronounce it. It's the CK1 pencil mic. It's a condenser mic. There it is right there with Recording Studio Monkey. Cool little guy. Fairly inexpensive. I got it for $150, I believe, from Sweetwater. It's got, it's not going to focus, come on guy. Anyway, it's got an, there it goes, a switch on it that lets you cut at I think like 80 hertz or something like that, and then another switch that lets you do the 10 dB cut, but I'm not using either of those for this. So I'm going to be using that from now on, hopefully on all the room recording audio that you're going to hear. And I'm also doing a new trick with the Zoom H2. Rather than recording to the little SD card, what I'm doing is I'm just running it direct out, the mic signal direct out, into the Saffire. So right now, let's see, let me just go back to the actual miking deal here. On the cabinet, Port City cabinet, we've got the MD421, and it's on, let's see, it's on the Ear Candy Sugar Cone, and the 57 is on a Scumbag 100 watt XH75 LHDC speaker. For the video, the next video I'll do, I'll demo the Titan with the wet dry setup. I'm not using the volume pedal anymore on these videos, rather I'm using the line out level to control the actual amount of volume that comes out of the cabinet. But the way that I'm running this setup, since we're talking about this setup, I've had a lot of guys curious about it. It's not a complicated setup. Wet dry is fairly straightforward, but it's a very unconventional way of doing something that we're used to doing much simpler. It's really this cable right here is coming out of the back of the amp. The only other thing that's plugged into the amp is the foot switch. It goes into the input from amp, and the line out goes, it's this red cable here, it goes into the effects, and right now it's just the big shot, which uses a ground lift in case there's any kind of feedback from the hot plate, which occasionally happens. Hey, shut up. Anyways, what this does is it lets you do a ground lift on it if there's any kind of feedback. This is only effects right here, and of course in any kind of setup you're going to run, you can run it any way you want, be it in a G major or any other kind of effects processor, but ideally you want it to have two outputs, a left and right stereo output, because that's kind of the whole point of doing a wet dry setup. So for right now I'm using these Hardwire pedals because it's got true stereo in and out on all their pedals, so it gives for the money, it gives a very good stereo effects. It goes then out of the effects into the left and right inputs of a power amp. It can be any power amp you want, solid state, tube, you name it. And then out of that, a left and right speaker output. Now this can go to a left and right cabinet, or in my case, the way I've got my cabinet wired, the left and right speaker. So you can have a 212 and still pull this off and still get a pretty good sound out of it, but ideally you do want more than one cabinet to really spread the sound out. So that's how the wet dry setup works. As far as the input of the amp goes, you run it just like normal. The only difference that this setup has from a typical setup is the way that the speakers are run, and you have to have something for a load so that you don't blow up your output transformers on the amp, or output transformer, just one. Anyways, so yeah, I use a hot plate Weber makes a good one. They have several of them actually, a little bit cheaper than the hot plates. Let's see, the Dr. Z Air Brake is another good one, and let's see, they've got the Ultimate Attenuator, plenty of others. Just do your research, and there's plenty of them, or you can just build your own from the Weber stuff. So that's the actual amp setup. The mics go, let's see, they go into a DBX 215 dual EQ. As you can see, I'm bypassing both of the channels. I really don't do that unless I'm after something really specific for my studio recordings. So for these videos, these are just bypassed, so you don't need that. And then it all goes into the Focusrite Saffire Pro 40. And basically this lets me capture all of the audio from all the different microphones. So we've got the 421, the SM57, the used to be K2, now the Avantone CK1 room mic, the Zoom H2, and if I'm doing DI tracking on bass, I've got the Sans amp, and another one I can run out of the hotplate if I want to use one of my clean channels on my tube amps for DI bass. And let's go ahead and pull up Adobe. Let's see, we've got Sony Acid Pro. This is another project I was working on. Insert a couple of audio tracks here, and it'll probably be difficult to show exactly what I'm doing here. Yeah, it's gone. Okay. I've got let's see. Input is mono, and it's coming from input 1. So this is going to be my 421 audio track. Go ahead and delete that. And delete that. And this one is set up input 2. So this is the 57. And delete that. Get rid of that. Okay, so here we have 4 audio tracks. I'm going to go ahead and set this input to number 3. So that's the Avantone. Arm that for recording. And then this final one I'm going to set up number 4. Arm that one. So now we have all of the mics armed for recording, and as you can see, this one is already panned 100% left and 100% right. These are the 2 direct mics on the speakers, and we'll go ahead and set the 2 room mics 100% each side also. And what this is gonna start me off with a really good stereo separation of the room audio, and I can kind of tweak it around a little bit depending on which mic captures which frequencies. And of course you can always go in and let's bring that over here. You can always go in and EQ the room mics if it's a little dull sounding, which the H2 being as inexpensive as it is kind of dull sounding. So what you can do is you can boost the treble on that to kind of give it a little bit more crispness. So that is all 4 of my tracks armed for recording, and once that's recorded, I'll go ahead and start videoing, showing you what I'm doing in Sony's Vegas Pro. And this is Acid Pro 7. So I will go ahead and we'll get some audio examples for you guys, and after that we'll show you guys how we mix the audio to get a good sound on the video. So on to part 2.